You know that moment when your entire world tilts on its axis? When someone you love more than your own breath looks at you like you're nothing more than an inconvenience. I'm about to tell you a story that will make your blood boil, then hopefully warm your heart. But I need you to stick with me until the very end, because what happened next changed everything. My name is Violet Thompson, and I'm 72 years old. Before you make any assumptions about what that means, let me tell you something. I ran a successful accounting firm for 35 years. I learned how to use computers before most people had email addresses, and I still balance my checkbook to the penny every single month. Not because I'm old-fashioned, but because I'm thorough. Now, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your state or country in the comments below. I'd love to know where my story reaches. Let me take you back to 3 months ago, to a Tuesday afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona. I was walking through my house carrying a basket of fresh laundry when I heard my grandson Tyler's voice echoing from the den. He was 16, and I'd been letting him stay with me after school most days because his parents, my daughter Karen and her husband Brad, both worked late hours at their medical practices. They were surgeons, successful ones, and I was proud of them. I was happy to help with Tyler. I should mention that I'd purchased a top-of-the-line gaming system for Tyler 6 months earlier, not the cheap version, the premium package that cost me nearly $800. Then there were the games, the subscriptions, the downloadable content. I'd linked everything to my credit card because Tyler's parents said it was easier that way, and I trusted them. I trusted him. Every month, charges appeared on my statement. $50 here, $75 there, sometimes more. I never complained. Tyler was my only grandchild, and after my husband Raymond passed away 4 years ago, Tyler's visits were the highlight of my week. I looked forward to hearing about his school projects, his friends, his dreams about becoming a game designer someday. That Tuesday, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The den was just off the hallway, and Tyler's door was wide open. I could hear the sounds of gunfire and explosions from whatever game he was playing, and then I heard his voice, loud and clear, talking to his friends through his headset. "Dude, I'm telling you, my grandma is so old and stupid. She still writes checks at the grocery store. Can you imagine? She holds up the entire line while she fills out a check like it's 1980-something. It's embarrassing as hell." His friends laughed. I could hear them through the speakers, cruel, mocking laughter that stabbed right through my chest. I stood frozen in that hallway, clutching my laundry basket so hard my knuckles went white. The afternoon sun was streaming through the window behind me, and I remember thinking how strange it was that the world could look so bright while I felt so dark inside. But Tyler wasn't finished. She's always asking me to explain the same stuff over and over. Like I showed her how to text photos literally 15 times, and she still can't figure it out. Sometimes I think she plays dumb just to get attention. It's pathetic. I didn't move. I couldn't. It was like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until there was nothing left but pain. This was the boy I'd rocked to sleep as a baby, the child I'd cheered for at every little league game, the teenager I'd sat with for hours, helping him through his grandmother's death on his father's side, telling him it was okay to cry and that grief was natural and healthy. And he thought I was stupid, pathetic. The worst part, he said it so casually, like it was just an accepted fact. Like everyone knew Grandma Violet was the family joke, too old and dense to function in the modern world. Plus, Tyler continued, and I could hear the smile in his voice, she keeps buying me whatever I want. I just tell her it's for educational purposes or whatever, and she hands over her credit card. Last week, I got that new expansion pack that cost like $90. She didn't even blink. More laughter. One of his friends, a kid named Derek, I think, said something I couldn't quite make out, and Tyler responded, "Yeah, exactly. She's loaded from my grandfather's insurance or something, and she's got no clue what anything costs. It's like having my own personal ATM machine, except the ATM machine lectures you about the importance of thank you cards." That was the moment. That was when something inside me shifted from hurt to something else entirely. Something cold and calculating and absolutely done with being disrespected in my own home. I set the laundry basket down very quietly and walked to my bedroom. My hands were steady now. The shock had worn off, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I sat down at my desk, the same mahogany desk where I'd managed the books for countless clients, where I'd built a business from nothing, where I'd proven time and time again that I was anything but stupid. I opened my laptop. Not the tablet Tyler had snickered about me struggling with once when the touchscreen froze. My actual laptop, the one I used for my volunteer work with the Library Foundation, where I managed their entire digital donor database. I pulled up my bank's website and logged into my account. Every password memorized, every security question answered correctly on the first try. Then I pulled up the gaming platform's website, Microsoft. I logged into the family account I'd created when I bought Tyler's gaming system. I'd set it up myself, carefully reading through all the terms and conditions, making sure I understood exactly what I was agreeing to, because that's what thorough people do. That's what smart people do. I sat there for a long moment, my cursor hovering over the account settings. From down the hall, I could still hear Tyler laughing, still hear the sounds of his game. He'd probably racked up another $50 in charges this month alone. Money I'd worked for, money I'd saved, money I'd given freely because I loved him. But love isn't supposed to come with contempt, and generosity isn't supposed to be mistaken for stupidity. I clicked into the payment settings and found the option I was looking for: remove payment method. But I didn't just remove the payment method. That would have been too simple, too easily fixable. No, I went deeper. I accessed every single subscription, every gaming pass, every piece of downloadable content tied to my credit card. One by one, I canceled them. Each click felt like taking back a piece of my dignity. Yet, the gaming subscription that gave him access to hundreds of games? Canceled. The premium multiplayer service? Gone. The season passes for his 3 favorite games? Revoked. The cloud storage for all his saved games? Terminated. I even found recurring charges I didn't know existed, something called V-Bucks for a game called Fortnite, monthly subscriptions to gaming magazines, special edition content packs. I canceled everything. Then I went a step further. I changed the family account password. I updated the security settings so that every purchase, every download, every attempt to add a new payment method would require my explicit approval through my email. An email Tyler didn't have access to. An email he didn't even know the address for, because why would he? I was just stupid old grandma who probably didn't understand how email worked anyway. The entire process took me about 40 minutes. 40 minutes of methodical clicking, careful reading, and cold determination. When I was finished, I sat back and looked at my work. Tyler's entire digital empire was now built on sand, and I held the tide. I checked the gaming platform one more time to make sure I understood what would happen next. According to their terms of service, which I'd actually read, unlike most people, when subscriptions were canceled, users would lose access to subscription-based content immediately. Downloaded games purchased outright would remain, but without the online services, most modern games were essentially unplayable. No multiplayer, no updates, no access to the digital-only features that made the games worth playing in the first place. From the den, I heard Tyler shout, "Yes, take that, you noobs. I am unstoppable." I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. I closed my laptop, stood up, and went to the kitchen to start preparing dinner. I made Tyler's favorite, pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. I set the table with my good china, the kind I usually reserved for holidays. I even made homemade rolls, the kind Raymond used to love, the kind Tyler always asked for. While the roast cooked, I went about my evening routine. I wrote out 3 checks, one for my water bill, one for my monthly donation to the animal shelter, and one for my church's building fund. I took my time with each one, making sure my handwriting was clear and precise. Then I put them in stamped envelopes and set them by the front door to mail tomorrow. Because here's the thing about checks. They leave a paper trail. They can't be hacked. They can't be stolen by someone who guesses your password. and they certainly can't be used by ungrateful teenagers who think their grandmother is too stupid to notice she's being used. At 6 o'clock, I called Tyler for dinner. Tyler came shuffling out of the den, his eyes still glazed from hours of screen time. He was tall for 16, nearly 6 feet, with his father's dark hair and his mother's sharp cheekbones. He'd been a beautiful baby. He was growing into a handsome young man. But right then, looking at him as he slumped into his chair without so much as a greeting, I saw only entitlement. "This looks good, Grandma," he said. "And I'll give him this." He sounded genuine. He loaded his plate with pot roast and reached for the rolls. "I'm glad you think so," I replied, my voice perfectly pleasant. "I know you've had a long day playing your games." He nodded, already chewing. "Yeah, I finally beat that level I was stuck on. It was sick." "That's wonderful, dear. I'm sure all that practice is really paying off." We ate in relative silence for a few minutes. Tyler wasn't much of a conversationalist at the best of times, and I wasn't about to force it. I watched him eat the meal I'd prepared, watched him take second helpings, watched him devour 4 of my homemade rolls without once looking up from his plate. "Tyler," I said finally, "I've been thinking about your game system." He looked up, a flicker of interest in his eyes, or maybe it was wariness. "Yeah?" "I've been reviewing my credit card statements, and I noticed there are quite a few charges every month. Gaming purchases, subscriptions, things like that." He shifted in his seat. "Oh, yeah, I mean, you said it was okay. Mom and Dad said you didn't mind." "I don't recall saying any such thing," I replied calmly. "I recall you asking for the game system for your birthday, which I happily provided. I don't recall agreeing to unlimited monthly expenses." "It's not that much," he said, and there was a defensive edge creeping into his voice now. "Like, it's probably only $50 a month or whatever." "Try closer to 200, I said, but that's beside the point. The point is, I've been feeling taken advantage of lately. His face went red. "I'm not taking advantage of you, Grandma. That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I took a sip of my water, letting the silence stretch, because I heard something today that made me reconsider our arrangement. I watched his expression change, confusion first, then something that might have been memory, then unmistakable panic. His eyes darted toward the den, then back to me. "I was walking past the den this afternoon," I continued, my voice still perfectly level, "and I heard you talking to your friends. Something about how old and stupid I am, how I still write checks like it's the 1980s, how embarrassing it is that I don't understand technology." Tyler's face had gone from red to white. "Grandma, I'm not finished." I set my water glass down with a quiet click. "You also mentioned that I'm like a personal ATM machine, that I have no clue what anything costs, that you just tell me things are for educational purposes, and I hand over my credit card like a fool." The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler stared at his plate, his jaw working but no words coming out. I could see his mind racing, trying to figure out how to backtrack, how to explain, how to minimize what he'd said. "Grandma, I didn't mean—" "Don't." My voice was sharp now, cutting through his attempted excuses. "Don't insult me further by lying. You meant every word. I heard the laughter. I heard how casually you mocked me, like it was just accepted fact that your grandmother is too old and too stupid to deserve your respect." His eyes were welling up now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort him. This wasn't the time for comfort. This was the time for consequences. "You want to know something funny, Tyler? I'm not stupid. I built a successful business. I learned how to use computers in the 80s, before most people had them in their homes. I managed complex financial portfolios for dozens of clients. I raised your mother to be a successful surgeon. And yes, I still write checks, because checks leave a paper trail that helps me track my expenses and donations. That's not stupidity. That's wisdom. I know, I'm sorry. I also know how to navigate online banking," I continued. "I know how to manage digital accounts, and I know how to cancel subscriptions." The color drained from his face completely. "What?" "About 2 hours ago, I logged into the gaming platform account. The one I created with my email address, my credit card, my personal information, and I canceled everything. Every subscription, every service, every recurring payment. I removed my credit card from the account entirely. Tyler pushed back from the table, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. You can't do that. That's my stuff. Your stuff? I raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Tell me, Tyler, who purchased the gaming system? He didn't answer. Who pays for the internet service that allows you to play online? Silence. Who provided the credit card that's been funding your gaming habit for the past 6 months? That's not fair. His voice cracked, somewhere between anger and tears. You gave me that stuff. You said I could have it. And you said I was stupid, I replied quietly. You mocked me to your friends. You used me. You saw me as nothing more than a source of money. So now we're done. The gaming system is still yours. I won't take back a gift. But everything that requires my money, my credit card, my financial support, that's over. Tyler's hands were shaking. But my games, all my progress, my friends. Should have thought of that before you decided your grandmother was too pathetic to deserve your respect. He stood there for a long moment, and I could see the war happening behind his eyes. Part of him wanted to apologize, wanted to break down and beg forgiveness. But a bigger part, the entitled part, the part that had been growing unchecked for years, was furious. I'm calling Mom, he finally said, his voice low and threatening. Please do, I replied. I'm sure she'd be very interested to hear about all of this. Tyler pulled out his phone and stormed into the den. I could hear his muffled voice rising and falling in agitation. I calmly cleared the dinner dishes, wrapped the leftover pot roast, and hand-washed my good china. Raymond had given me that set for our 20th anniversary. I'd be damned if I was going to let Tyler's tantrum make me careless with things that mattered. My own phone rang about 15 minutes later. Karen, I dried my hands, sat down at the kitchen table, and answered. Mom, what's going on? Tyler is absolutely hysterical. Hello, Karen. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you? There was a pause. I could almost see her recalibrating her approach. Mom, Tyler says you deleted all his games. That's not accurate. I canceled the subscriptions and services that I was paying for. The games he downloaded are still on the system. He just can't access the online features anymore. But why would you do that? He's devastated. Did he tell you why I did it? Another pause. He said you overheard him talking to his friends and you got upset. Got upset is an interesting way to frame it. What exactly did he tell you, he said? Something about you writing checks. Mom, you know teenagers say stupid things. You can't take it personally. I felt my jaw tighten. Karen, your son called me old and stupid. He told his friends that I'm pathetic, that I play dumb for attention, and that I'm essentially a personal ATM machine. He mocked me in my own home while playing games on equipment I purchased and enjoying subscriptions I pay for. The silence on the other end of the line stretched longer this time. Mom, I'm sure he didn't mean it like that. He meant exactly that, and what concerns me most isn't even what he said. It's how casually he said it, like it was just accepted truth, like everyone knows Grandma Violet is the family joke. That's not true. Nobody thinks that. Are you sure about that, Karen? Because your son certainly does, and I have to wonder where he learned that attitude. What's that supposed to mean? Her voice had an edge now. It means that children learn disrespect from somewhere. They learn that some people's time, money, and feelings don't matter. I've been watching Tyler for years now, funding his hobbies, providing childcare, being a constant presence in his life. And apparently, all I've earned is his contempt. You're being dramatic. Those 3 words, those 3 dismissive words that told me everything I needed to know. If you're watching this, and you've ever been told you're being dramatic when expressing legitimate hurt, hit that subscribe button right now, because you deserve to be heard, just like I did. I'm being clear, I said. I will not fund entertainment for someone who considers me stupid. The gaming subscriptions are canceled. That's final. Mom, Brad and I both work 12-hour days. We need you to watch Tyler after school. You can't just make his life miserable because your feelings got hurt. I'm not making his life miserable. I'm teaching him that actions have consequences. And for the record, my feelings didn't get hurt. I was disrespected, mocked, and used. There's a difference. Karen sighed, that long, suffering sound I remembered from her teenage years. Fine. How much do I owe you for the subscriptions? Brad and I will take over the payments. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Mom? You want him to grovel? You want a written apology? What do you want? What did I want? I sat there in my quiet kitchen, looking at my checkbook on the counter, at the framed photos of Tyler from better times on my refrigerator, at the life I'd built in this house over 40 years of marriage and 4 years of widowhood. I want respect, I said finally. Not gratitude, not fawning appreciation, just basic human respect. I want Tyler to understand that I'm not a resource to be exploited. I'm not a convenience. I'm a person who has feelings and dignity and deserves to be treated accordingly. He's 16, Mom. 16-year-olds are idiots. They say stupid things. You're being too sensitive. And there it was again, too sensitive, too dramatic, too hurt by something I should just brush off and move past because boys will be boys and teenagers will be teenagers, and really, wasn't I being unreasonable by expecting better? Karen, I said slowly, I'm going to say something now, and I need you to really hear me. When your father was dying, Tyler was 12 years old. Do you remember how scared he was? How he didn't want to visit the hospital because he was afraid of seeing his grandfather sick? Yes, but what is that? I'm the one who sat with him. I'm the one who explained death in terms a 12-year-old could understand. I'm the one who held him while he cried and told him that grief was natural and healthy. I drove him to the hospital every day for 2 weeks until he was comfortable visiting. I made sure he got to say goodbye to his grandfather properly. Where were you during that time? Silence. You were working, I continued, my voice steady. You and Brad were both working because you had important surgeries and important patients and important responsibilities, and I understood that. I never once complained. I stepped in because that's what family does. But family also means mutual respect, Karen, and right now I'm not feeling very respected. Mom, I appreciate everything you've done, but do you? Because your immediate response to learning that your son cruelly mocked me was to tell me I'm being dramatic and too sensitive. Not to ask if I was okay, not to express any disappointment in his behavior, just to figure out how to keep his gaming privileges intact. I heard her take a sharp breath. When she spoke again, her voice was different, tighter, more professional, her doctor voice. Fine, I'll talk to Tyler. I'll make sure he apologizes. Can we please just move past this now? He can apologize, I said, but the subscriptions stay canceled. And Karen, I think I need some space from watching Tyler after school, at least for a while. You can't be serious. Mom, we have patients scheduled weeks out. We can't just rearrange our entire practice because you're upset. Then I guess you'll need to find alternative childcare arrangements. I'm sure there are after-school programs available. The conversation ended badly. Karen was furious, her voice climbing into registers I hadn't heard since her teenage years. She accused me of being petty, of holding grudges, of punishing her for Tyler's mistakes. She reminded me that I'd volunteered to watch Tyler, that nobody had forced me, that if I was going to be this unreasonable, then maybe it was better for everyone if I stepped back. I agreed completely with that last part. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my kitchen for a long time. The house felt different somehow, emptier but also cleaner, like I'd opened windows and let stale air escape. Through the wall, I could hear Tyler packing his things. Karen had told him Brad would pick him up within the hour. True to her word, Brad's SUV pulled into my driveway 45 minutes later. Tyler rushed out without saying goodbye. I watched from the window as he threw his backpack into the car, his gaming headset clutched in one hand. Brad didn't come to the door. He didn't even look at the house. They just drove away. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. I'd gotten used to the sounds of Tyler's games, his laughter with friends, even his occasional frustrated outbursts when he died in whatever digital world he was exploring. The silence was oppressive at first. But then something interesting happened. I started filling that time with other things. I volunteered more hours at the library. I took a watercolor painting class at the senior center, something I'd been meaning to do for years. I joined a book club. I even went on a few day trips with some women from my church, exploring parts of Arizona I'd never seen despite living here for 30 years. I didn't hear from Karen or Tyler for 3 weeks. No calls, no texts, no visits. It hurt, but it also clarified things. When someone's presence in your life is conditional on your usefulness to them, their absence speaks volumes. Then, one Sunday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Tyler stood on my front porch, and he looked different. Smaller somehow, though he'd probably grown another inch. His eyes were red-rimmed, his expression uncertain. Behind him, visible through the window of their SUV, Karen and Brad sat watching. "Hi, Grandma," he said quietly. "Hello, Tyler. Can I talk to you?" I stepped aside and let him in. We sat in the living room in the formal chairs I usually reserved for guests. Tyler perched on the edge of his seat, his hands clasped between his knees. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what I said, for how I treated you. It was really messed up." I waited. An apology is only the beginning, not the end. "Mom made me see a therapist," he continued, and there was something almost like shame in his voice. "She was really mad about everything. Dad, too. The therapist asked me a lot of questions about how I talk about people, especially people who do things for me. It was uncomfortable. I imagine it was. She said, the therapist said that I've been taking you for granted, that I've been acting entitled, and she's right, I've been a jerk." Tyler looked up at me then. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in months. "I didn't realize how much stuff you do, how much you've always done. Mom told me about how you helped me when Grandpa was dying, and I didn't even remember most of it. I just remembered being sad, but I didn't remember that you were the one who made it okay." I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness yet. That would take time. But maybe the beginning of understanding. "The thing is," Tyler continued, his voice cracking slightly, "I've been thinking about why I said those things. And I think it's because you made everything seem so easy. Like you just showed up and did stuff and never complained, so I thought that's just what you did. I didn't realize it was a choice, that you could decide not to help me anymore. Everything is a choice, Tyler, including respect. I know that now." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I lost all my game progress when the subscriptions ended. All my saved data, my rankings, everything. And at first I was so mad at you. But then I was just sitting there with this expensive gaming system that didn't work anymore. And I realized something." "What's that?" "You didn't take it away. You could have. You could have demanded I give it back or just come in and grabbed it. But you didn't. You just stopped paying for my stuff. And that made me realize that all of it, was only mine because you let it be mine." I nodded slowly. "That's a very mature observation." "I've had a lot of time to think." He looked down at his hands again. "Mom and Dad got me into this after-school program. It's actually pretty cool. They have a game design club and everything, but it's different because I had to earn the privilege of staying for clubs by keeping my grades up and doing chores at home. And it made me realize I never had to earn anything with you. You just gave it to me." "I gave it to you because I love you," I said quietly. "But love doesn't mean allowing yourself to be disrespected." "I know." He was crying now. Really crying, the kind of tears that come from genuine shame and regret. "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry I called you stupid. I'm sorry I used you. I'm sorry I didn't see how amazing you are." I reached over and took his hand. It was bigger than I remembered, rougher, more like a man's hand than a boy's. "Tyler, I accept your apology, but I need you to understand that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not going to pretend nothing happened. I understand. The therapist said that too. She said consequences are important." "Your therapist sounds wise." He gave me a watery smile. "She's pretty cool. She's teaching me about something called emotional intelligence. I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm trying." We sat there for a long moment, holding hands across the coffee table, not saying anything. Outside, I could see Karen and Brad still waiting in the car. "Your parents are waiting," I said finally. "I know, but I wanted to ask you something first." Tyler straightened up, squaring his shoulders in a way that reminded me painfully of Raymond. "Would you maybe want to have dinner together sometimes? Like actual dinner where we talk and stuff. Not me just showing up to use your internet and eat your food?" I felt tears prick my own eyes. "I would like that very much." "Cool. And Grandma?" "I'm going to get a job. The after-school program helped me apply at a few places. Once I save up enough, I'm going to pay you back for all the gaming stuff I bought. Mom showed me the credit card statements. I didn't realize how much it was." "Tyler, you don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted. "I need to. I need to make this right." After Tyler left, I sat in my living room for a long time, thinking about what accountability looks like, what genuine remorse sounds like, and how sometimes the hardest thing we can do for people we love is refuse to accept less than we deserve. Karen called me that evening. The conversation was stiff at first, formal, but by the end we'd made plans for Sunday dinner. She also apologized. Not a grand apology, not a groveling one, but a real one. She admitted she'd been dismissive of my feelings, that she'd been so focused on the logistics of her own life that she'd forgotten to consider mine. It's been 2 months now since everything happened. Tyler comes over for dinner every Tuesday. We actually talk about school, about his game design projects, about his job at the local bookstore, where he's saving up to pay me back. He's different now, more thoughtful, more aware. Last week, he brought me something he'd been working on in his game design class, a simple computer game about a grandmother who goes on adventures. The character looked nothing like me, but when I played it, I found little details that showed he'd been paying attention. The grandmother character was smart, capable, solving puzzles that required logic and strategy. She didn't need rescuing. She was the hero. "I made it for you," Tyler said, "to say thank you for teaching me that being old doesn't mean being obsolete, and that writing checks doesn't mean you don't understand technology. It just means you understand what works for you." I still write checks. I still take my time at the grocery store, carefully filling in the amount and signing my name. And if anyone has a problem with that, they're welcome to wait the extra 30 seconds while I do things my way. Because here's what I learned from all of this. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to be treated unkindly. Sometimes love means establishing boundaries. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the opportunity to face consequences, grow from them, and become better. My name is Violet Thompson. I'm 72 years old, and I'm not stupid. I'm strategic.